Whoops, that was my bad.
Okay, so we'll go over a little bit of what we spoke about yesterday, and don't think I'm going to make things any more understandable, but at least if you understand what's not so understandable. Not that I'm going to try to clarify. So again, Aristotle's dilemma is the only logical existence, the only existence that can explain itself is the existence is the infinity. I say the infinity because when we talk of infinite, we use it as an adjective, that's a mistake. Because infinite and finite are mutually exclusive. They are two qualitatively different states of being. Everything that we know, everything that we deal with, anything that we can imagine, anything that we can describe, we describe by its definition, we imagine it by its definitions. Definitions include size, shape, color, the concept, what it is and what it is not. We live by definition. Anything that is finite is finite is finite. There's no such thing as something that is semi-finite as far as we're concerned. The alternative is infinity. Infinity is just one infinity. Infinity, which is everythingness, with no parts, no dimension whatsoever, which includes no space, no time. It just is. It's a state of being. In order for existence to exist, if existence is finite, then it had to have a beginning. If there was nothing that existed, there was no space, there was no time, there was no nothing. Where and how did this happen? So finiteness began when? Where? So finiteness is a non-starter. The only logical way of understanding existence is the infinity. The problem then is, where's the finite? Inside the infinity, then you're limiting the infinity. You're saying the infinity has a part that's finite. Outside the infinity, no such thing. The infinity is the everythingness. Aristotle's dilemma, again, the Greeks pursued this theory that really finiteness began as something less and less and less finite, and therefore could always have existed. They presented it as olam kadmon, that the world, or better yet, the universe, always existed. That was disproven when they discovered the Big Bang. That means the Big Bang basically states that there was a beginning. Along with the Big Bang, there's another discovery that also negates the universe always having been, which is that the universe is not static, it is expanding. The idea of always having been here only works for a static universe. A universe that is constantly expanding, okay, so where did it start? It must have been smaller and smaller and smaller, so where was the beginning? Whether it's the Big Bang or the expanding universe, they both make it very clear that there was a beginning to finite existence. Which means that in truth, Aristotle's dilemma remains and the Greek solution has been scientifically disproven. Clear? And that's where science is holding. That's where science is today. Then comes the Jewish alternative. The Jewish alternative, as much as we can understand it, is the infinity is logical existence. Finiteness is totally illogical. But it's undeniable because that's where we live. We call that miracle. It is existence that we cannot understand. But it's very interesting because what we're really saying is the opposite of what everyone imagines, which is that logical existence is the infinity. Finiteness is that which we cannot understand. Everyone else will tell you the infinity is beyond our understanding and the finite is here. We understand it very well. You see, we work with the finite. We know the rules of the finite. But we don't understand how it could have come about. With the infinity, it's the other way around. The infinity is logical existence. But exactly what the infinity is, we can't possibly perceive of it, because we can only perceive of things through their definitions. When you're dealing with a state that is definitionless, there's absolutely no way of referring to it. In fact, the most accurate name of the infinity, which we call God, is the name the Kabbalists use for God, which is Ein Sof, means no end or no definition. Infinity. That's it. That is the Kabbalistic name of Hashem. Infinity. So infinity is a logical existence. The finite, we don't know how it came about. So we're told it's sort of inside the infinity, not inside the infinity. There was a void, whatever that's supposed to mean. That's a metaphor. But it's placing the infinity inside the infinity and yet not in the infinity. It is not the infinity itself. It's made of the infinity stuff. It's made of this ray of infinite light, whatever that is a metaphor for. Where is it? In the void that the infinity created for itself, which we cannot understand. And again, even that is a metaphor. It's restating Aristotle's dilemma. That means it's inside and it's outside. If you ask the question, how can it be inside? It's outside. If you ask the question, how can it be outside? It's inside. So the Jewish answer is logical existence is the infinity, which we call God. Illogical existence is the finite, but it's undeniable because we're here. What is the real answer to coexistence? We have a metaphorical answer, and few individuals over the generations have understood exactly what that meant.
Would the finite still be? It'd still be part of the infinite, even though it's still
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to it does not have an independent existence. Yet it is finite. Just I did point out yesterday that finite is not as finite as we think it is.
Well, I guess my question would be if Hashem is infinite good. Okay.
From good is already giving him definition.
Well, okay, fine.
Well, we can't use this religious terminology when we're dealing with science. If we're talking about Hashem as the infinity, then we'd have a hard time talking about good. That'll be the next step when we get religious. But right now, we're still talking about from a scientific perspective.
Okay.
Okay. So first, rationally speaking, Judaism has offered a solution that is beyond our ability to really understand other than few individuals. But it certainly has been dealing with Aristotle's dilemma in a very intelligent way by noting that infinity is logical existence, finite is undeniable but unexplainable, other than by saying it's in and out, and at the same time it's so difficult to know what that means. Which means that this in itself is logically telling us that God must exist, and that God, who is the infinity, is the source to all finite existence. All finite existence is made of the God stuff. It's made of the infinity stuff that one way or another was diminishing. So in our initial question, is there meaning to life? That will depend on whether or not there's God. Logically speaking, there must be the infinity, which we call God. This approach to what we call emunah, I guess belief, not exactly, but sort of knowledge. The mitzvah of emunah is to know. This is referred to in the good books as chakira, which is doing logical investigation to prove the existence of the infinity. Rambam is very much into it. Others who follow the Rambam. There was another school that, since we don't understand this anyway, why bother? Why bother? So in presenting Jewish philosophy, to be honest, what I just presented you was only one school of thought in terms of really arriving at the need for God's existence. Yeah.
I know that there's also the school of thought of like God exists, but to create the world and then like step back.
No. That's a whole other story, and that is not Jewish thought.
No, I know, but
it's not Jewish philosophy. Yeah.
Well,
but one thing's for sure. Anything you're going to have to say about God's participation in the world will have to fit into referring to God as the infinity. In other words, we can't be too carried, or we can't get too carried away in giving him moods and decisions and sort of being there or not being there and so on.
This is where I keep getting stuck. If we can't understand triviality, the infinity, then how could we ever know anything? And then in turn, how do we know?
The answer is, and we're going to get to this, the answer is that the infinity actually communicates with us, which is what the Revelation Sinai is. But we'll have to get there. It's many steps from here. But ultimately, that's what we arrive at. Now, the next approach is also very logical. It's extremely logical. But it's not on that same philosophical level of, working through the finite versus the infinity. It is basically talking about the origin of finite existence. And that is, we live in a very complex and beautiful world. Everything is complex. Everything is complex. From photosynthesis, which keeps vegetation alive, to digestion, which is different in different creatures. Carnivorous animals eat raw meat and digest it. Yet, the same enzymes that digest that raw meat cannot digest the intestines of those animals. You got that? That means a lion will eat the intestines of a giraffe. And the enzymes inside the lion will digest the intestines of the giraffe. But they won't digest the intestines of the lion, or that means they don't dissolve the lion's own intestines. How does that happen? Which means that the enzymes that are inside the lion are chemically designed to digest the giraffe's intestines, but not the lion's. And every creature has its particular enzymes that do digestion in a way that is appropriate for what that particular creature can eat. The human eye, vision, the human brain. Nature is wow. Where does this all come from?
Isn't there an idea that this isn't the first time showing the world?
Leave all that out. We're being rational. All right, we're trying to use our intellect. Where did all that come from?
infinite.
One second. So ask your average adult, I don't know what grade they started teaching otherwise.
We created it.
What?
We created it.
No.
Well, years-
What does everyone
No,
say?
Years of evolution.
What?
Years of evolution.
Everyone will tell you it all evolved. Everything evolved. Now, let's start with the first, which is the first logical issue. We already established that finite existence could not have showed up in a vacuum. Where did finite existence come from? You know, once you had finite existence, it could have evolved. But where did it come from? The most simple way of phrasing it, I refer back to my high school days. I was in 10th grade when they introduced evolution as part of the curriculum. This is in New York. Part of in New York State, if you want a regent's degree from high school, you have to pass all the tests, and part of it was the biology exam that included evolution. So even though I was in an Orthodox institution, they decided to teach evolution with all the new textbooks that came out. The teacher was Jewish but not observant. He was a biologist by training. There were many parents who objected because we were all Orthodox. And who knows what evolution would do to our emunah. But the school nevertheless decided to go ahead with it. I remember it was the first class on evolution. I know, you all studied evolution. How does it start?
We were all monkeys.
What?
We were all monkeys.
No, come on. It starts way before that.
Single cell.
Yeah.
Single-celled organism evolved.
Before that, what is it? What is it all
The
begin with?
Big Bang.
Magma soup.
Before the Big Bang. Well, I mean, not before. What did it all start with?
Creation of Earth.
Or the boiling.
You're saying this. That's not what they teach you.
No, the start of time.
It begins with the primordial soup,
Yeah, it's been boiled.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darwin begins with the soup.
Well, before the Big Bang, they say it was like dust.
Whoa, 1 second. Before that, they don't know anything about before the Big Bang.
Well,
They don't know anything. We have never gotten past the Big Bang. But it began with the primordial soup. Evolution does not in any way apply to the soup or even the first cell. The first cell did not evolve. It just appeared. There were no stages before that first cell. It appeared. Evolution only explains what happened after the first cell. When I was in 10th grade, I remember this kid raised his hand, "Teacher, where did the soup come from?" And he looks in the book. He says, "It doesn't say." Evolution on its own is not an alternative to creation. Evolution explains how the first cell could have possibly turned into lots of species.
How does this like line up with like dinosaurs?
They evolved.
Like time period wise.
So, in terms of Judaism and evolution, we have no problem with it. Meaning, if God decided to create things in stages, have them evolve, why is that a contradiction to creation?
Does that line up with like the 6 days of creation?
Yes, but I'll have to talk about it.
Because the years don't work.
Yeah, we'll talk
Okay,
about
that's
it.
right.
We'll talk about it. The next thing, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But there's actually a source to the concept of God having created things gradually by way of evolution. It is the Pirush Haradal on Pirkei de Rav Eliezer. This is going back to the days of the Vilna Gaon, which is 18th century. And he explains that Hashem didn't just say, let there be giraffes and let there be monkeys. What Hashem did is he set in motion a process of evolution. This is the 18th century. 1700s, late 1700s.
Could I ask a question? You mentioned something earlier, and it just made me think. Does Judaism see time as linear?
No, 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Now we get to time.
Okay.
The problem, the big problem is, we speak of this year being year 5,786. Science claims that, they used to say 15 billion, it's still growing. So, initially, when I was growing up, they told us carbon dating is not reliable when you're dealing with longer periods of time. It hasn't been around long enough. So number one, archaeology has come a long way. Archaeology is a science. In the olden days, it wasn't. In the olden days, it was a guessing game. And, they were writing history on the basis of little tidbits of information they got. Today, with technology, archaeology is a science. They can not only analyze the age of fossils, they know exactly what they ate. They know exactly who lived where and what their diet was. They can analyze the soil and understand and find remnants of animal waste and human waste and understand what it was that they ate that then turned into it. Technology has really revolutionized everything. For us to insist on the world being 5,786 years old at this point in time, why do we have to? Not 1 second. It says the verse says in Tehillim, Ki elef shanim be'enecha, 1,000 years in your eyes, ki yom esmo ki avor, is like yesterday's day. Now we understand that the numbers used in the Psalms are not precise, they're concepts. The verse is telling us that a day to God is 1,000 years, means it's so much longer. The 6 days of creation, we have no idea how long they were. Now, we used to have a man on staff, he comes to visit every so often, Dr. Gerald Schroeder, you see his books, he was a physicist. He came up with this beautiful theory. The numbers work, but I think that the science has changed the numbers already, so it may not work so well anymore. Einstein taught us that time is relative. It's relative to mass. His claim was that until the creation of man, time was measured by the mass of the universe. It was universe time. It was only after man came about that time was measured on Earth. Because of the difference between the mass of the universe and the mass of the Earth, 6 days equals 15 billion years. And they did the math, and it worked. Right away, thank you. Now, whether or not we have to go that far, I don't know. But one thing's for sure, we don't know how long those first 6 days of creation. We have absolutely no reason to say with confidence that science is off. In fact, today, we take it seriously. Archaeology today is a serious business. We have no reason to go and argue with that. It could be that God created the world slowly allowing things to evolve, and it took a very long time. And that the years we count are from Adam. Now, with regard to the creation of man and Adam and all of that, that's a whole other discussion. I would like to spend a class on that one. Just tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah.
I'd like to spend a class on that one because we're not dealing with apologetics and trying to reconcile Torah and science. This was dealt with, there was a major disagreement in the days of the Rishonim, the Rambam, Ibn Ezra, Ramban. There was a whole discussion of the creation of man and what that looked like and how long it took and so on. This is not something that was made up to counter evolution. This was a discussion that has been around for hundreds of years. So that I would like to share with you tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.